they out here raping up everybody. These folks are getting out of prison and they're going to come to white suburbia and rape, rob, steal, pillage, and kill. What's good, Nesters? I'm Rabbit West, aka West Nest Jess. This is the West Nest. So today, I want to talk to you about the Haitians. And a little bit more specific than that, the vilification of black and brown people. Okay, so let's get into it. If you've been living under a rock, President Trump busted on the scene in this presidential debate talking about the Haitians in Ohio, Springfield, Ohio specifically, are eating all the cats and the dogs. To make matters even worse, J.D. Vance, who is a current senator, got on CNN and said, yeah, these illegals are eating all the cats and eating all the dogs. And we'll get to your good boy JD in a minute. But as we all know now, if you don't, you should know that it is not true. Let's talk a little bit about these Haitians, okay? The thing that's really been going around is, oh, these illegals are eating the cats and they're eating the dogs. These folks are not illegal. These sect of Haitians are here under TPS, which is Temporary Protection Status. Now, this particular program came about in the 1990s. In 2010, it was extended to the Haitian population under President Obama. Cool. President Trump renewed their status under his administration. Now, whether he knew what he was doing or not, because I don't believe he reads anything that he signs, we don't know, but he renewed it, and I think he later tried to retract it, but whatever the case, they're here under temporary work visas, okay? This particular program extends temporary work visas to vetted immigrants with encouragement to populate specific areas in order to work and build an economy. Okay. So why does Springfield need this? Springfield, much like the place I grew up, is a declining population. So when you have manufacturing jobs leave an area, you have youth leave the area. You have young people leave the area. With young people, you have the working class. You have their wombs, which repopulate the working class and their sperm. And it leaves an aging, if not already old, population. And bless their hearts, they worked hard enough. They need to be able to deal with the last of their life and relax and draw their Social Security while it still exists. But no. So the immigrants are coming in and they're working and they're building the economy. This is why you saw the governor and the mayor's jumping up so quick to be like, no, they're not. No, they're not. We're happy to have them here because they are building up that area's economy. And I give you that background because it's being painted like they just came over here on a raft and they're taking over. The other thing that I really want to point out, because I don't want to miss a thing, okay? I don't want to miss a thing. This is crazy to me. Haitians have been in the U.S. for centuries, okay? They didn't just pop up a couple weeks before the debate and go crazy. The largest sect of Haitians are in Florida. The next largest population is in New York, followed by Ohio and California. Why would this particular sect of Haitians in Ohio, okay, culturally decide to do something completely different than all of their counterparts throughout the U.S.? Make it make sense. I digress. We're not going to do that. Anyway, just a little bit of background to get us started, okay? Now let's talk about why they are being vilified. So we got your good girl, Erica Lee, okay? Erica Lee got on to Facebook and made this dragging ass post, and I'll put it on the screen. And it says, warning to all about our beloved pets and those around us. My neighbors inform me that her daughter's friend has lost her cat. She checked pages, kennels, and asked around, etc. And one day she came home from work, and as soon as she stepped out of her car, she looked toward her neighbor's house, where Haitians live, and saw her cat hanging from a branch, like you would do a deer for butchering. And they were carving it up to eat. I've been told they are doing this to dogs, and they've been doing it in Snyder Park with ducks and geese. As I was told that last bit by rangers and police. Please keep a close eye on your animals. Erica. Okay, so the lie always goes further than the truth, right? The printed article is always bigger than the retraction. Erica later came out and said, yeah, I really didn't know somebody that knows somebody. It wasn't true. But yet this story now has legs. You have millions of people in the US of A who believe that these folks are just killing up everybody's pets. Okay? I'm not going to spend too much time on Erica. But that's how I got out there, and that's the retraction that she gave, and now it's supposed to be smoothed over because you said, oh, my bad, I didn't think it would go that far. To help it go that far, we're gonna revisit my good friend, J.D. Vance. I just like to say this. J.D. Vance is a sitting senator of Ohio, okay? What does that mean? That means J.D. Vance could have picked up the phone. Beat me 911 or call me on my cell phone and ask somebody, what are the reports going on in Springfield? Are they eating the cats and eating the dogs? Are people hiding their pets? Is it an increase in violence? He could have asked somebody. He could have phoned a friend. But instead, he got his grown self on television and said, look, if I got to create stories to help the American people, then so be it. Matter of fact, let you hear it from JD himself.
Stuff until Donald Trump and I started talking about cat memes. If I have to,
but it wasn't just a meme,
create stories so that the American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do, Dana, because you guys are completely letting Kamala Harris coast.
You just said that this is a story that you created. So the eating dogs and cats thing is not accurate.
Dana, it comes from firsthand accounts from my constituents. I say that we're creating a story, meaning we're creating the American media focusing on it. I didn't create 20,000 illegal migrants coming into Springfield thanks to Kamala Harris's policies. Her policies did that, but yes, we created the actual focus that allowed the American media to talk about this story and the suffering caused by Kamala Harris's policies.
So a couple of things about this statement. It's just such a heavy statement. I think people really glance over what politicians say these days. We need to be listening because when somebody shows us who they are, we need to listen, right? Let me first talk to you about Southern strategy, okay? Southern strategy, was something under Larry Goldwater and Richard Nixon. And it was basically the strategy to use fear to energize a base, okay? Why do I bring up Southern strategy? In that statement, there were a couple of dog whistles being blown, okay? Number one, we have illegals. We've already talked about how they are not here illegally. They're here under TPS. And they're eating the cats and they're eating the dogs, which we know is a blatant lie, right? And they're here under Biden's administration. However, they've been here since 2010. They were renewed under Trump's administration, and they're still here, yes, under Biden's administration. But what he's doing is he's using the fear in order to energize his base, even though the things that he's claiming are not true. Okay? And the one thing that is true was also true for the previous two administrations. So We gotta be careful with stuff like this. The other thing, and the elephant in the room, is him talking about creating stories. If I have to create, if I have to create a story, let me make sure I quote him correctly. If I have to create stories so that the media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, is crazy work. It's crazy work. I'm going to tell you why it's crazy work. This is what happens when you create stories. When you create stories, we get Emmett Till. When we create stories, we get Rosewood, Florida. When we create stories, we get Wilmington, North Carolina. The list goes on and on. We get Black Wall Street. This is what happens when we create stories. Okay? And we have got to do better at holding people in general accountable. All of these things happen because people gave it power and gave these created stories platforms to push an agenda. And let's call it, that is what it is. J.D. Vance in that clip was pushing an agenda to vote for President Trump. I don't understand why we have to tear down and vilify a group of people in order to get what we want. And in this case, that's a one election. It's crazy work. Since we're talking about Richard Nixon and the Southern strategy. So when Richard Nixon was running, right, he was dealing with the shit war, and shout out to all the veterans. But the war wasn't going the way they thought it should go. People here back home were protesting. It was a huge thing. You had hippies, as they like to call them, going in. You had African Americans going in. It was just a thing, right? So what Nixon decided to do was to vilify hippies and African Americans in order to incarcerate and decimate their communities. Don't believe me? Just watch. So I'm about to read to you a statement, I'll put it on the screen as well, from Richard Nixon's domestic policy chief at the time. His name is Ehrlichman, and in 1994 he did an interview, and this is what he said. You want to know what this was really about? The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies: the anti-war left and the black people. You understand what I'm saying? We know we can't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and the blacks with heroin, and then criminalize them both heavily, we can disrupt their communities, and we can arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. I can end the video right there. I can end the video right there. That is why it is so dangerous to vilify a group of people, because it's a means to an agenda end, right? The agenda for Nixon was, let's start this war on drugs, right? And by this war on drugs, we are going to get rid of these hippies and the blacks by making them the face of the drugs. And we're going to say drugs are so bad, drugs are so rampant, drugs are the cause for all of the violence and the killings and the this and the that. And then we'll make these two groups, the face of it, and then we can just terrorize them until they shut up and go hide in a hole. But people were actually hurt behind this rhetoric. People are in prison to this day due to this rhetoric. It wasn't just something that was a cute meme on the internet, of course, or a song that we bopped to and laughed about and kept it pushing. So that's my point, is stuff like this can really gather wings. So I'll give you another example. We're going to talk about William Horton. He's known as Willie Horton, even though he never went by that nickname, and that's because that's what George Bush just called him, the disrespect, but that's what he called him. So Willie Horton was a prisoner. He was in prison for murder. Okay. And in 1988, 1988, George Bush, the senior, was running against Dukakis. Dukakis was, at the time, the governor of Massachusetts, okay? And under his governorship, he has supported furloughs, weekend furloughs for prisoners, that allowed them to come out of prison and work, that type of thing, on the weekends. So Willie was one of those prisoners. Well, Willie escaped from the furlough and apparently assaulted and robbed and raped someone. What George Bush did was he put out an ad in 1988. You can look up the Willie Thornton ad on YouTube. But he put out an ad. It was like a 10-minute ad, dude. But he put out an ad, and basically he said, hide your kids, hide your wife.
Obviously, we have a rapist in Lincoln Park. He's climbing in your windows. He's snatching your people up, trying to rape them. So y'all need to hide your kids, hide your wife, and hide your husband, because they're raping everybody out here.
They out here raping up everybody. These folks are getting out of prison, and they're going to come to white suburbia and rape, rob, steal, pillage, and kill. And if you vote for a man like Dukakis, that is what you're voting for. And it caused fear and panic. So much so that people who study politics identified that particular ad as a turning point in the election from Dukakis to George Bush. That got him into the White House by creating fear and vilifying a group of people. And I don't just mean prisoners, because of course Willie Horton was also black. So our politicians have a history of creating this fear of one another to us, right? And then feeding off of that fear to create a platform for you to vote on. And I just want us to be smarter. I want us to look deeper. I want us to make sure that we're fact checking stuff before we're sharing it on Instagram and Facebook. I know, especially in the African American community, we laugh through pain, and we will make a joke out of anything, and it'd be a good kiki. But I want us to remember that we are not the only ones looking. Okay, we need to be more responsible with the things that we share, because who knows where this can put Haitian people if we are under an administration of Trump and Vance. You know what I mean? Who knows what things that they will enact to follow through with their promise on stopping people from eating cats and eating dogs, which they aren't. All right. Last thing, promise. I want to take us back in the time. So, in the 1800s, and yes, I said 1800s, we ended up with the Chinese Exclusion Act. Okay, what is the Chinese Exclusion Act, Jess? The Chinese Exclusion Act was an act that banned Chinese immigration for 10 years. Okay, and there were some exceptions to the ban, but 10 years, you can't come over here. We don't want you to stay where you're at. You can't come over here for 10 years. How did it start, you ask? Well, I'll tell you. In 1849, after the gold rush, right, you had large populations of Chinese coming from the east and moving to the west coast, because the west coast was booming and bucking on the scene after the gold rush. Who wouldn't want to be a part of that? They went over there. They did what they do. They set up community. They fed the economy. They were feeding their families, and they were working hard. You had white Americans at that time who were unemployed, and they saw the reason they were unemployed to be the Chinese fault. Some were getting paid low wages. That was the Chinese fault. Basically, all ill will and misfortune that begot to me is the Chinese fault. Talks of inferiority. These folks are less than. These Chinese are inferior humans, if that. And it just grew and grew and grew and grew legs, because it's a created story. And that's the theme. That's the thesis of this video. And you end up with the Chinese Exclusion Act being signed into law. Into law. This isn't just, it got much bigger than just local violence against Chinese. It became a law. And I give you all of these examples. Let me land. Okay. I give you all of these examples so that we understand the power of words, the power of people and their fear, right? We need to do a better job at counteracting the stuff that these politicians are doing. And this politicians on both sides. We're not just going to put it on JD and Trump. It's politicians from both sides. It's local, it's state, it's national. And they have the propensity to create fear and then ask you to vote so that those fears don't come true, or we can stop this particular fear from happening to you. The problem is what's happening to these people who are target of these fears while you're climbing your way to office. What violence will begot Haitians because some crazy person, some extreme thinker takes matters into their own hands. Some extreme Peter lover. I don't know. But we're putting people at risk by vilifying them for the sake of politics. And it's got to stop. Anyway, that's more than my 2 cents in history lesson. I hope you liked the video. If you like this type of content and you want to see more, I'd be happy to provide it. If you don't like it, that's cool too. Let me know in the comments. What did you like about it? What did you love about it? What do you agree with and what don't you? But again, let's be respectful. It doesn't matter who you're voting for. It doesn't matter, you know, what you're registered under as a voter. And it doesn't matter your color. We all have to live in this America together, and we've got to find a better way to come together. So let me know your thoughts below. I am Rabbit West, aka West Nest Jess. I will see you guys next time. Bye.